Arrive 15 minutes before service. Tell the elder that you are here to Acolyte. Check to see that there is a bulletin in the Acolyte chair before the service begins. Check the candle lighter and make sure that there is a means to light it. Before you change into a robe, check your attire. You are a representative of St. Paul and a part of the worship leadership of the service. And most importantly, you are serving at God's altar. Even though your robe will cover most of your street clothing, it is important that you be very aware of your appearance and especially concerned about those items of apparel that are not covered by your robe. Select shoes that will not draw attention. Tennis shoes are not acceptable. Wear long pants to cover your legs under the robe. Change into a robe. These are outside the sacristy. Your robe should not be too short or so long that you might trip over it. Look for a robe that comes to the top of your ankles. Tie the rope around your robe and put the cross around your neck. 10 minutes before the service begins, go to the pastor's office for prayer and for any special instructions. At the welcome and sharing of peace, light the candle lighter and enter the sanctuary at the beginning of the singing of the opening hymn. When the congregation begins singing, come to the center aisle of the nave and facing the chancel, bow. Walk to the chancel rail and bow. Enter the chancel. Starting on the left side of the altar, the epistle side, light the candles. Starting with the candle that is closest to the cross, light the candles outward. Only light the communion candles, which are the candles closest to the cross, when communion is on the altar. Then light the candles to the right of the cross in the same order, starting with the candle closest to the cross and lighting outward. When you are finished, exit the chancel and bow. The Christ candle is lit from Christmas to Ascension and at baptisms. It is lit after the altar candles and extinguished last at the end of the service. During Advent, the Acolyte lights the Advent wreath according to pastor's instructions and depending on which Sunday it is in Advent. When finished lighting the candles at the beginning of the service, return to the designated Acolyte chair, blow out the light, and hang up quietly the candle lighter, and prepare to participate in worship. During the service, you can be seen by the people in the congregation and should have presence by looking good and sitting up straight in your chair. You should help lead worship and participate in all parts of the service. This includes sitting, standing, and kneeling as you lead the congregation in these actions. You should also pay attention because you are the pastor's assistant. Watch the pastor at all times for signals. During the service, you should participate in confession of the sins at the communion rail, at the same time the pastor does. Remain kneeling until the congregation is told to stand. When it is time for the reading, turn the light on and off at the lectern for the reader each Sunday. When pastor announces the offering will be taken, go to the chancel rail opening and bow. Get 2 offering plates from the shelf unless instructed otherwise. Go to the center of the altar facing the nave. When the ushers arrive, give them a slight bow to greet them. They will then take the offering plates from you. Dismiss them with another slight bow, and as you leave the chancel, turn to the altar and bow. Once the elders are in the chancel to the right, go to the front of the altar in front of the nave before the chancel and place the cushion in front of the gates after you bow. Enter the chancel. Turn, close, and lock the communion gates. Turn and bow to the altar. And stand with the elders to the right of the altar. You will join the altars at the altar for communion in order to receive a blessing at the appropriate time with pastor. Take the empty communion tray from the altar and follow the elder with the chalice offering the tray to those who took individual cups to put their empty cups in. At the end of the last table, wait for the last of the congregation to leave, and then immediately go to the communion rail, open the gate, place the cushion to the side, and bow to the altar as you return to your seat. During the closing hymn, look at the pastor. He will indicate which verse of the hymn to begin extinguishing the candles. Acknowledge that you have received these instructions. When it is time to extinguish the candles, walk to the chancel and bow. Extinguish them in the opposite order. Starting on the right side of the altar, the gospel side, extinguish the candles. Start with the candle that is farthest from the cross and extinguish the candles inward. Then the candles to the left of the cross in the same order, starting with the candle farthest from the cross and extinguishing inward. Light the wick from the candle lighter from the last candle to be extinguished. During Advent and times when the Christ candle are lit, it will not be the candle on the altar. Leaving the chancel, face the altar and bow. Then, come to the center aisle of the nave where you began. And once again, facing the altar, bow. Then, if the Christ candle is to be extinguished, now is the time to do so. The candles are to be extinguished by burning the oxygen under the bell. Do not touch the wick with the bell. Hold it over the wick until the flame goes out. Go to the sacristy and prepare to disrobe. Place your lighter in the stand and leave a note on the sacristy door if anything, including the candles or lighter, needs attention. Hang up your robe and cord on a hanger and leave it just like you found it. Make sure it's straight and snap closed, and wait for the conclusion of the service before exiting the sacristy.